UC, Chris, has some pretty elite rebounding numbers. They're obviously known as a good rebounding team. I think it's fair to say they haven't played a ton of great teams so far. So how do you make sense of kind of the numbers they've put up versus who they've been putting them up against, and then how do you evaluate the challenge on the glass?
Honestly, I don't look at the numbers. I wouldn't even know what their rebounding margin is. You know, I think historically they've been phenomenal on the glass in any year that Mick's had them, and so whether they have played the Lakers or a Division III team, like I'm not going to look at the rebounding margin. I'm just going to know that, the personnel, you got a front court that's, very senior laden. You have a mentality that attacks the glass, and it was a weakness of ours a year ago in that game. For the most part, we were a phenomenal rebounding team on the defensive end a year ago, but didn't get the job done last time we played.
Can you describe for us the experience, because you hadn't had to experience it for a while, of living with a loss in this series? Is it any worse or harder to deal with than a loss to any other team?
Well, I mean, you don't want to drop one. It's hard. But, you quickly focus. I mean, maybe if that was the last game of the year, but you quickly focus on, making sure your team responds next game, whether you win or lose. I mean, we've been in situations where we've won the game and, everybody's ecstatic around the program, our fans, but, we have challenges ahead, and, this year's no different. So, whatever happens by 2 o'clock, 2:30 on Saturday, we're going to have to move forward and do it because we've got a long schedule to play.
What did this game mean to you growing up, and how much different is that viewpoint now, or maybe how close to that viewpoint is it now?
I guess growing up as a real little kid, it didn't have a whole lot of significance because, I think college basketball doesn't have the coverage that it does today, and the programs weren't nearly as strong. In the early '80s, both programs were pedestrian, and then I think Xavier got it going on, and Coach Huggins took over, and from that point on, I think both programs, minus a few blips here and there, have been on an upward ascent. So again, the coverage is greater. I'm sure the players that played in those games, it was just as heated, and it was as good of a rivalry as it is now. But with social media, just again, by and large, the coverage of the college game and the game here in the city, it seems like it's grown, but it's an honor to be a part of the game.
Are you allowed to allow yourself to be, a little more emotionally invested in this game, or does it have to be all business for you this week?
I'm allowed to do whatever I want, legally. But, I walk that fine line to make sure our guys are super excited to play, but also wise enough to make really good decisions when the game comes around, not take bad shots, shots that are out of adrenaline, not making, trying to make a play every time they touch the ball, staying on their feet on shot fakes, all the things that adrenaline can do to take away habits.
Final thought for me. How much better is this game when it is a top 25 showdown and a lot more eyeballs are kind of watching what's happening here in Cincinnati? Does it make it better for you?
Wow, that's a hard question to answer. It helps our schedule, both of us, but we could both be 0-25 and play the game, and I think we'd be ready to go.
Chris, I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about this, but how big of a day is tomorrow just in terms of recruiting, or is it just something you sell during the off season?
Yeah, I really don't know because it's hard to measure that. Certainly it's a nationally televised game. We'll have our fair share of recruits here, just as UC does when the game's over at their place. The environment at both places is electric, and I think if you're a recruit, you want to be a part of that. But most high school kids, have their own games to play as Ohio high school basketball starts tonight. So, we'll get our fair share here. How much it impacts our recruitment, honestly, I wouldn't be able to measure it.
Right, but safe to say do you target this date to get kids in, if at all possible, when it's here at Cintas?
Yeah, I mean, we target every date, you know, because just the way it works out in people's schedules. But if you ask me, would I rather have kids come to this game? Sure, because it might be the loudest arena in the country tomorrow.
Sean told us about, there was some mention of like a reference to how many days it's been since the last game after Tuesday night against Baylor. Can you talk at all about what the message was there after the Baylor game going into the UC?
I can't remember it.
Oh.
I can't remember that message.
All right.
It was a good one. I can't remember that one. I wish we had a camera in there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't have had a chance to see any tape from this yet, but just your thoughts on the managers pulling out the win last night.
I saw the highlights. Again, you talk about coverage. Like, wow. You know, happy for those guys, you know, to go out with a win. They've not worked at all on their game all summer. They've put in no time passing, shooting, defending. To be able to come out with a win, you know, really rewards mediocrity. But in all fairness and all truth, those guys, those student managers of ours, and I'm sure Mick would say the same thing, they do a thankless job. They do a million things. We come back from a road trip. It's 3 in the morning. They're doing laundry. They're going blurry-eyed to class. And, you know, I know we, as a coaching staff, really appreciate those kids giving up their time. And, you know, if it made their experience that much greater on a game winner last night, then I'm all for it. Happy for them.
Having already played 3 teams from major conferences, how much better has that prepared your team for a game like this?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, you know, iron sharpens iron. So I think you learn a lot about yourself when you play really good competition. But, you know, the personnel and the style of play changes from team to team. You know, everybody patted us on the back and said, wow, what a great defensive effort against Baylor. Baylor was much different than the challenge that Arizona State, you know, possessed. So I think we're getting better, and that's our mission all year long. Hopefully it helps us for tomorrow. But tomorrow's a very unique experience. It's a competitive game, as you guys know, and one that we're going to scratch, fight, claw, and try to come up on top.
Chris, you mentioned rebounding. But other than that specifically, what do you have to do as a team to win tomorrow?
Well, I think that we have to take care of the ball. UC is known for their pressure defense, their changing defenses, their full court defenses. It's no secret. I mean, Mick's kids play really hard. I think you can ask anybody around the country. I mean, it's a credit when your guys do what you want them to do, and his players certainly do that. So we've got to be able to have a game where, you know, we don't have 18, 19 turnovers. We've got to be poised with the basketball, get the shots that we want. And then I think defensively we have to win the paint. You know, we cannot allow offensive rebounds. We cannot allow multiple deep post touches. It leads to foul problems, them getting to the free throw line. You know, if you want me to talk about how to guard specific actions, you know, maybe we can do that later off the record. But that's it in a nutshell to me.